You hear it first, not the whistle, not the wheels, not even the steam hissing against frozen iron. You hear the silence before the sound arrives. The way the world holds its breath when something impossible crosses into the real. It's Christmas Eve, 1892. You're 8 years old, standing at your bedroom window in a Pennsylvania mining town that smells like coal dust and desperation. The glass is so cold it burns your forehead. Your breath fogs the pain. And through that fog, through the falling snow that shouldn't be falling this heavy, this fast, you see it. A train, black as a funeral shroud, moving without sound through a town that has no tracks. The locomotive glides past weathered row houses like a ship through fog. No headlamp, no glow from the cabin. Just the silhouette of something massive and deliberate cutting through the Christmas darkness. You blink. Rub your eyes with small fists, still sticky from the peppermint stick your mother rationed like medicine. When you look again, the train is still there. Real. Impossible. Both. This is not a fairy tale. This is America in the Gilded Age, a country glutted on progress and starving its children. The year 1892 sits between two centuries like a coin balanced on its edge. Edison's electric lights are spreading through cities like a virus of the future. Carnegie's steel empire is eating men alive in Pittsburgh. And somewhere between innovation and exploitation, between the promise of tomorrow and the brutality of today, children are disappearing. Not kidnapped, not murdered, just vanishing. The newspapers call it the Christmas drift. Parents call it tragedy. The authorities call it migration, urbanization, the natural consequence of families torn apart by factory work and poverty. But you standing at that frosted window, you call it what it is. Magic. Dark magic. The kind that doesn't ask permission. The train stops at the end of your street. You don't remember putting on your coat. You don't remember opening the front door or stepping into snow that reaches your knees. But you're outside now, and the cold is a living thing with teeth. Your breath comes in clouds that hang in the air like small ghosts. The train waits, patient, inevitable. It's not like the locomotives you've seen at the station, those monsters that shake the earth and scream their arrival. This one is silent, elegant, raw. The metal is so black it seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. No rust, no scratches. As if it's new despite looking ancient. As if it was built yesterday and 100 years ago simultaneously. The passenger cars stretch behind the engine like a spine. 6 of them, maybe 7. It's hard to count through the snow. Each window glows with a warmth that has nothing to do with fire. You move closer. Your feet crunch through the snow in a rhythm that matches your heartbeat. Fast, afraid, excited. Through the nearest window, you see them, children, dozens of children, maybe hundreds, sitting in plush velvet seats that look stolen from an opera house. They're not moving, not speaking, not sleeping, just sitting. Staring forward with eyes that reflect the golden light from lamps that swing gently from the ceiling, despite the train being perfectly still. Their faces are pale, clean, well-fed, which is wrong because you know these children. You recognize Mary O'Connor from The Tenement, Tommy Briggs, who lost 3 fingers in the textile mill last spring, Sarah Kowalski, whose mother washes clothes 16 hours a day. These children are never clean, never still, never silent. But here they are, transformed, wearing clothes that fit, sitting straight, existing in a space that seems separate from the world, from hunger, from cold, from the grinding machinery of industrial America that chews up childhoods and spits out workers. Someone is standing behind you. You turn. It's not your mother, not your father sleeping off his shift, not the constable or the priest or anyone from the waking world. It's a conductor, tall, impossibly tall. Wearing a uniform that's too perfect navy blue with brass buttons that catch light that isn't there. His face is kind, which makes it more terrifying. "Last call," he says. His voice sounds like distant bells. "All aboard for Christmas." You look back at your house, the window where you stood moments ago. Your mother is probably asleep, dreaming of a Christmas that won't come, no presents, no feast, just another day of surviving. Your father is underground, black lung eating him from the inside. Your sister died last winter, diphtheria, quick and cruel. The conductor extends a gloved hand. "The train doesn't wait," he says, not threatening, just factual, like he's explaining a law of physics. "And it only comes once." Your feet move before your mind decides. One step, two. The snow melts around the train, revealing track that gleams like wet silver. The door opens without anyone touching it. Warm air rushes out, carrying the scent of pine and cinnamon and something else, something that smells like safety, if safety had a smell. You climb aboard. The door closes behind you with a sound like a book shutting. Final, complete. And as the train begins to move, still silent, still impossible, you realize you can't remember your own name. Not because you've forgotten it, but because it doesn't matter anymore. You're not a child from a Pennsylvania coal town. You're not poor or hungry or cold. You're a passenger. And the train is taking you somewhere that doesn't exist on any map, to a Christmas that was never supposed to be yours, for a price you haven't learned to count yet. If this feels too real, subscribe before it gets worse. Because what happened on that train didn't stay on that train. It became a legend, then a lie, then a children's book, and now? Now we're going to excavate the truth from the snow. The first child disappeared on December 3rd, 1892. Not from Pennsylvania, from Chicago. A girl named Eleanor Hastings, 10 years old, daughter of a stockyard worker and a seamstress who took piecework home until her fingers bled. Eleanor went to bed in a room she shared with 4 siblings, packed together like matches in a box. By morning, her space on the mattress was cold, empty, the window nailed shut by her father after the last break-in stood open. No footprints in the snow outside. No screams, no struggle, just absence where a child used to be. The police wrote it off as a runaway. Chicago in 1892 swallowed children the way fires swallow oxygen constantly, inevitably. The stockyards alone employed thousands of workers in conditions that made hell seem like a vacation destination. Children worked alongside adults, their small hands perfect for reaching into machinery that didn't discriminate between flesh and leather. Eleanor's father returned to work. Her mother folded Eleanor's dress, her only dress, and placed it in a trunk that smelled like camphor and defeat. 3 days later, 2 more children vanished in Detroit, then 4 in Cleveland, then a dozen scattered across Pennsylvania's coal country. By mid-December, the pattern was undeniable. The victims were always children between 7 and 12, always working class, always gone without trace or sound. No witnesses, no evidence. Just empty beds and parents trying to explain the unexplainable to authorities who didn't care enough to investigate properly. You wouldn't know this sitting in your velvet seat on the silent train. You don't know that while you're warm and still, your mother is screaming your name into the snow. You don't know that she searched for you until her voice breaks. That your father will die 2 years later, the black lung accelerated by nights spent wandering frozen streets calling for a child who can't hear him. You just know the warmth, the light, the feeling of being held by something larger than yourself. The train moved through a landscape that shouldn't exist. Outside the windows, snow falls upward. Trees grow with their roots in the sky. Churches stand inverted, steeples pointing toward earth like accusations. You watch all of this without fear. The other children watch too. Nobody speaks. Nobody questions. You're all suspended in a state between waking and dreaming, between December and forever. The conductor walks through the car, checking invisible tickets. He stops at each child, placing a hand on their shoulder. When he touches them, they change. Subtle shifts. A girl's hair becomes cleaner. A boy's hollow cheeks fill out. Bruises fade. Burns heal. It's as if the train is erasing their suffering, scrubbing away the evidence of their real lives, the way your mother scrubbed your face before church. When he reaches you, his hand is heavy, warm, wrong. Almost there, he whispers. His breath smells like peppermint, like the stick you were sucking when you saw the train. Almost home, but you don't have a home. Not really. You have a house, a place where you sleep between work shifts at the button factory, where your fingers bled from pulling thread through holes too small, where Christmas meant maybe an orange if your father's shift went well, if the foreman wasn't drunk, if God decided to remember your family existed. This train, this warmth, this impossible journey, this feels more like home than anything you've left behind. Meanwhile, in the real world, panic spreads like influenza. Newspapers pick up the story. The Christmas Vanishings reads one headline. Children stolen by winter's grip, claims another. Reporters interview frantic parents who all tell the same story child there at bedtime. Gone by morning, no signs of forced entry. The police form a task force. The Pinkertons get involved, hired by wealthy families in Boston after 2 children from Beacon Hill disappear from a Con Hill house with locked doors and a night watchman. Theories multiply like bacteria. It's kidnappers selling children to factories. It's white slavers. It's a cult. It's spontaneous combustion. It's God's judgment on industrial America. It's mass hysteria. It's anything except what it actually is. A train that runs on rails made of lost hope, fueled by the exhaustion of children too tired to keep living their regular lives, stopping only for passengers who are ready, whether they know it or not, to trade one reality for another. The first journalist to connect the disappearances to reports of a phantom locomotive is a woman named Adelaide Morrison. She writes for the Boston Globe, covering society events and women's issues, because that's what female reporters are allowed to do in 1892. But Adelaide is sharper than her assignments. She notices something the male reporters miss witnesses. Not parents, not police, siblings. Adelaide interviews 17 siblings of missing children. Different cities, different circumstances. But they all report the same thing, waking up in the middle of the night, feeling cold despite blankets, seeing their brother or sister standing at the window, staring out at something. And when asked what they saw, if they looked out the same window, 14 of the 17 mention a train. A black train. Silent. Wrong. It didn't whistle, says Martin Chun, 8 years old, whose brother disappeared in San Francisco. Trains whistle. This one just waited. Adelaide publishes her article on December 18th. The Phantom Express. Are our children being taken by a ghost train? The headline is sensational because sensational sells papers. The content is meticulous. She includes a map showing disappearance locations, a timeline, eyewitness accounts. She calls for federal investigation. The article is buried on page 7. Most readers skip past it to get to the advertisements and society news, but some read it. Some believe it. And some, a small, desperate group of parents, decide to do something about it. On the train, you're not thinking about parents or journalists or investigations. You're thinking about how soft the seat feels, how the lamplight doesn't hurt your eyes the way gaslight did, how you can't feel the ache in your hands from 12-hour shifts threading buttons, how for the first time in memory, you're not hungry. The conductor returns to the front of the car. He faces all of you 60 children, maybe 70, all silent and still and transformed. His voice, when he speaks, fills the car like music from an organ. "Welcome," he says, "to the only place that ever wanted you." And somewhere, deep in your chest, in the part of you that still remembers your real name, you feel something break, or maybe heal. It's hard to tell the difference. His name was Cornelius Thorne, and he built the train from grief. Not metaphorically, literally. Grief was the primary material smelted, forged, and shaped into something that could move between worlds. The rest was engineering, obsession, and a complete disregard for the laws that govern mortality. In 1892, Cornelius Thorne was 53 years old, a widower, and the most brilliant mechanical engineer nobody had ever heard of. He wasn't famous like Edison, wasn't rich like Carnegie. Worked in a warehouse in Philadelphia that smelled like rust and rat poison, designing train components for the Pennsylvania Railroad, springs, couplings, brake systems, parts that kept passengers alive without anyone knowing his name existed. Perfect anonymity, perfect tragedy. His daughter died in 1889. Consumption. She was 9 years old. Her name was Margaret, and she loved trains, loved the sound of them, the power, the idea that something so massive could carry you away from whatever was chasing you. She would make her father take her to the station just to watch arrivals, stand on the platform, wave at passengers, pretend she was traveling somewhere important. When she died, Cornelius broke in a way that doesn't show on the surface. He kept working, kept eating, kept living. But inside, in the places that mattered, he hollowed out, became a shell doing shell things. His wife, Margaret's mother, had died 2 years earlier. Same disease, different speed. Cornelius watched both of them dissolve from the inside out, their lungs filling with fluid while he stood helpless with his burrs, engineer's precision, and his complete inability to fix what was breaking. After Margaret's funeral, he stopped sleeping, started working nights in the warehouse. The supervisors didn't mind. Thorne was useful, quiet, never demanded raises. Let him haunt the building like a productive ghost. What they didn't know was what he was building in the back corner, behind crates of unused steel and broken dreams. A train, but not just any train. You see, Cornelius had a theory. If matter could be converted to energy, if coal could become motion, if water could become steam, then perhaps emotion could become something tangible. Perhaps grief, concentrated and channeled correctly, could power something impossible. Perhaps loss could be transformed into escape. He was, of course, insane. But insanity and genius look identical until one of them works. For 3 years, Cornelius worked, drew blueprints by candlelight, welded by moonlight, used materials stolen from the railroad in quantities too small to notice. A sheet of steel here, brass fittings there, wood from decommissioned passenger cars, glass from broken windows. He assembled the train the way a spider spins a web slowly, methodically, from the inside out. The engine came first, small, compact, powered by something that wasn't quite steam and wasn't quite anything else. Cornelius had developed a fuel source he called thermal essence, a combustible mixture that included coal dust, certain chemicals, and a component he never wrote down. Later analysis would suggest it was human ash, Margaret's ash, mixed into the fuel system like a prayer. The passenger cars followed, 6 of them, outfitted with seats salvaged from luxury lines that were being scrapped. Cornelius rebuilt each seat, reupholstered them in velvet dyed deep red, installed lamps that burned oil mixed with something phosphorescent. The windows were treated with a chemical wash that made them both transparent and reflective. You could see out, but the outside couldn't see in. By 1892, the train was complete. Impossible. Beautiful. Wrong. It sat in the warehouse like a question waiting to be asked. Cornelius stood before it on a November night, exhausted, empty, wondering what the hell he'd actually built, whether it would work, whether work was even the right word for what he was attempting. He designed the train to run on grief, to be powered by suffering, to travel not through space, but through the gaps between reality and wherever children's dreams went when they couldn't be sustained anymore. It created a vehicle for escape, not for himself, but for children like Margaret. Children who were being consumed by the industrial age the way consumption had consumed his daughter. Slowly, painfully, without mercy. The logic was simple, insane, perfect. If he could build something that ran on accumulated suffering, and if he could target children who were suffering enough to power it, then he could offer them an alternative. Transport them somewhere else. Somewhere better. Somewhere that didn't exist in the America that was killing them. Where that somewhere was, he didn't know. Didn't matter. Anywhere was better than the textile mills. Better than the coal mines. Better than tenements where 6 people shared one bed and dinner was bread soaked in fat. On December 1st, 1892, Cornelius Thorne climbed into the conductor's uniform he'd sewn himself. Black wool, brass buttons, a cap that made him look official, important, like someone who knew where he was going. He fired up the engine using the starter mechanism he'd invented, a pull lever connected to Margaret's music box. The one that played a tune she loved, now wound into the train's heart. The engine caught. The fuel, grief coal, ash steam, impossible combustion ignited. The train shuddered, glowed, began to hum with a frequency that shattered every window in the warehouse. And then it was gone. Not destroyed, gone, shifted. Moved into a space between spaces, onto tracks that existed only for passengers who needed them desperately enough. Cornelius felt it immediately, the pull. The train was hungry. Not for coal or water, but for passengers. For children whose suffering was acute enough, concentrated enough, to sustain the journey. The train sought them out automatically, drawn to desperation the way sharks sense blood in water. Eleanor Hastings in Chicago, reading by candlelight. Hands blistered from sewing. Wishing not consciously, but deeply for escape. The train appeared outside her window. She climbed aboard without question. The train fed on her exhaustion, her pain, her accumulated suffering, and in exchange gave her warmth, safety, transformation. By the time Cornelius realized what he'd created, 5 children had already vanished. By the time he understood the mechanism that the train was self-sustaining, self-directing, operating according to principles he built but couldn't control, 20 children were gone. He tried to stop it, returned to the warehouse. But the train wasn't there, was everywhere, was nowhere, had become something autonomous, something that lived in the margins between reality and desperate prayer. Cornelius Thorne spent the rest of December trying to undo what he'd done. Contacted spiritualists, mediums, scientists. Nobody believed him. Nobody could help. The train had become independent of its creator, a virus of salvation, spreading through industrial America, collecting children who were ready to leave. On Christmas Eve, Cornelius Thorne wrote a confession, 7 pages. Detailed specifications, blueprints, everything. He sealed it in an envelope addressed to the Philadelphia Police Department. Then he walked to the train station, the real one, with real trains, and threw himself in front of the Midnight Express from New York. The engineer couldn't stop in time. The impact scattered Cornelius across 50 yards of track. They found his body in pieces, found the envelope in his coat pocket, delivered it to the police 3 days after Christmas. The confession was filed as the ravings of a suicide. Nobody investigated. Nobody believed a man could build a ghost train from grief. Nobody wanted to believe, but the train kept running, kept collecting, kept offering escape to children who couldn't sustain another day of their actual lives. And you sitting in your velvet seat, warm and safe and transformed, you are proof that sometimes the impossible works exactly as intended, even when its creator dies trying to stop it. They called themselves the Seekers, which was both pretentious and accurate. 13 parents who refused to accept their children were simply gone. Refused to believe in accidents or runaways or divine judgment. They met for the first time on December 20th, 1892, in a church basement in Pittsburgh that smelled like mildew and desperation. The meeting was organized by Adelaide Morrison, the journalist who connected the disappearances to the phantom train reports. Adelaide wasn't a parent, had no children, had no intention of having children in a world that treated them as expendable machinery. But she had a nose for truth and a complete inability to let mysteries rest. The train story gnawed at her, kept her awake, made her feel crazy in the specific way that precedes discovery. The 13 parents who showed up looked like survivors of the same shipwreck, hollow-eyed, sleep-deprived, oscillating between rage and grief. They sat on hard wooden chairs in a circle that felt both supportive and confrontational. Introductions were painful. Each name was followed by another name, the missing child. Robert Whitmore, my son James, 9 years old. Gone December 7th, Pittsburgh. Anna Kowalski, my daughter Sarah, 10 years old. Gone December 5th, Philadelphia. Thomas Chen, my son Wei, 8 years old. Gone December 9th, San Francisco. Around the circle, 13 families, 17 missing children. Some parents had lost more than one. The geographic spread was staggering. Pennsylvania to California, Chicago to Boston. All working-class families, all children between 7 and 12. All vanished from locked rooms with no signs of entry or exit. Adelaide stood at the center of the circle, holding a map covered in pins. Red pins for disappearances, blue pins for reported train sightings. The correlation was undeniable. Every disappearance location had at least one train sighting within 24 hours. "It's real," she said. "Not a question, a declaration. The train is real, and it's taking children." A father from Detroit, Marcus Williams, who'd lost twin daughters, laughed. Not from humor, from exhaustion. "You're asking us to believe a ghost train is kidnapping our children? I'm asking you to believe what the evidence shows." Adelaide's voice was calm, professional, terrifying in its certainty. 17 siblings have reported seeing the train. 14 described it identically black, silent, appearing suddenly. 3 conductors have reported unauthorized trains on their routes. Telegraph operators have logged signals from stations that shouldn't exist. She paused, let it sink in. These were not people who believed in magic. These were factory workers, seamstresses, shopkeepers, people who dealt in tangible realities: bread, coal, wages, death. Asking them to accept the supernatural was like asking them to breathe underwater. "My question," Adelaide continued, "is not whether the train exists. It's where it's going." That was the pivot point. The moment the Seekers became something more than a support group. If the train existed, if it was taking children somewhere, then perhaps the children weren't dead. Perhaps they could be found, brought back, saved from whatever fate the train was delivering them to. The planning began immediately. Robert Whitmore James's father, a coal miner with hands like stone took charge. He'd spent 20 years underground managing crews, solving problems, staying alive in darkness. This was just another problem, just another darkness. "We need to map every disappearance," he said. "Times, locations, witnesses. If the train runs on a schedule, we find the schedule. If it has a route, we trace it. If it stops, we board it. It was insane, practical, desperate, perfect. They divided responsibilities. Anna Kowalski would interview families of the vanished, collecting details the police had ignored. Thomas Chun would investigate the train sightings, talking to conductors, telegraph operators, anyone who'd seen or heard something unusual. Marcus Williams would research railway schedules, looking for gaps, anomalies, trains that appeared in records, but not in reality. Adelaide would continue her journalism, but now with a purpose beyond publication. She'd use her press credentials to access police reports, railway manifests, telegraph records. She'd become their spy in the world of official information. Within 3 days, they'd mapped 47 disappearances across 9 states. The pattern was clear. The train moved west to east, roughly following major railway lines, but not adhering to actual tracks. It appeared most frequently near industrial centers, coal towns, factory cities, places where children worked themselves to death by inches. On December 23rd, they had their first breakthrough. A telegraph operator in Harrisburg reported something strange, a signal from a station called Evergreen Terminal. The problem? No such station existed. Not on Pennsylvania Railroad maps, not on any maps. The operator had logged it as equipment malfunction. But when Adelaide cross-referenced the time stop, it matched exactly with a disappearance in Harrisburg. A boy named Peter Hastings, no relation to Eleanor from Chicago, had vanished the same night the signal appeared. "It's not a malfunction," Adelaide said. "It's a station. The train has stations." The revelation was simultaneously hopeful and horrifying. Stations meant stops. Stops meant destinations. Destinations meant the children were somewhere, but where? In what reality? Under what conditions? Robert Whitmore made the decision. We wait for it. Find where it stops next. Board it. And then what? Anna Kowalski's voice was sharp. We ask politely for our children back. Then, we don't get off until we find them. It was a suicide plan. A last resort plan. But it was the only plan they had. On Christmas Eve, they stationed themselves at locations across Pennsylvania where disappearances had occurred. 13 parents. No weapons. What do you bring to fight a ghost train? Just determination. Desperation. Love sharpened into something that could cut. Robert Whitmore stood in an alley in Pittsburgh, watching the street where his son had lived. Snow fell. Silent. Heavy. The kind that muffles everything, makes the world feel wrapped in cotton. He smoked a cigarette down to his fingers, then lit another. Midnight approached. The city was quiet except for distant church bells announcing Christmas. And then silence before the silence. That impossible moment when the world holds its breath. Robert saw it first. The train, appearing at the end of the street like a thought materializing. Lack. Silent. Inevitable. Moving without sound, without light, without permission from reality. He ran. His boots slipped on ice. He fell, got up, ran harder. The train stopped. A door opened. Golden light spilled out, warm and wrong. Robert reached it just as a child appeared in a nearby window. A girl, no more than 8, standing in her nightdress, staring at the train with an expression Robert recognized. Hunger. Not for food, for escape. The girl moved toward the door, sleepwalking, dreaming, ready. Robert grabbed her shoulder. She jerked awake, screamed. Windows lit up in houses. Voices shouted. The girl's parents appeared, dragging her back inside. The conductor appeared in the train doorway, tall, impossibly tall. His face was kind, which made it more terrifying. She was ready, the conductor said. Not angry, just factual. Ready for what? Robert's voice was raw. Where are you taking them? The conductor smiled, sad, knowing, terrible. Somewhere they don't have to hurt anymore. My son, James Whitmore. Is he aboard? The conductor nodded toward the train. Safe, warm, fed. Everything you couldn't provide. The words hit like fists, because they were true. Robert worked 70 hours a week and still couldn't keep his family properly fed. James had started working at the textile mill at 7, lost a finger at 8. Was old in ways that had nothing to do with age. Let me see him. You can't. Let me see him. Robert lunged forward. His boot hit the bottom step. His hand grasped the railing. For a moment, one impossible moment, he was boarding the train, entering that golden light, feeling the warmth that had seduced his son. Then the conductor touched his shoulder, gently, almost kindly. Robert flew backward, landed in the snow. The train door closed. The locomotive began to move, still silent, still wrong. Robert scrambled to his feet, running alongside it, screaming James's name. Through a window, he saw faces. Children. Dozens of them. All peaceful. All transformed. And there in the third car, James, his son. His boy, looking healthier than Robert had ever seen him. Plump cheeks. Clean clothes. No exhaustion. No pain. James looked toward the window, toward his father running in the snow, screaming, and didn't recognize him. Just turned away. Returned to looking forward. Peaceful. Gone. The train vanished. Not gradually. Just gone. As if it had never existed. Robert knelt in the snow, Christmas bells ringing, and understood with perfect clarity that he'd just lost his son twice. Once to the train, once to salvation. The train didn't travel through Pennsylvania. It traveled through Pennsylvania's shadow, the version that existed underneath the real one, where all the discarded possibilities lived. You'd understand this if you could look out the windows properly. But you can't. Not yet. Your mind is still adjusting to the new physics, the rules that govern this space between spaces. What you see through the glass makes sense until you think about it. Trees, snow, mountains, all correct, all wrong. The trees grow upside down, roots in the sky. The snow falls in patterns that repeat exactly the same flakes, the same trajectory, over and over. The mountains are hollow. You can see through them to the other side, to a landscape that shouldn't exist behind solid stone. This is the margin, the space between what is and what almost was. Every decision creates a branch. Every possibility generates a parallel track. The train runs on these discarded rails, the paths not taken, the futures not chosen, the Americas that could have existed if different choices had been made. The conductor walks through your car again. His footsteps sound like a heartbeat. Steady. Eternal. He stops to adjust a lamp that doesn't need adjusting, to check on a child who isn't moving, to exist in the visible way ghosts do when they want to be seen. Almost there, he says to no one, to everyone. His voice carries that strange quality, like he's speaking from far away and right next to your ears simultaneously. A boy 3 seats ahead. You don't know his name, and somehow names don't matter here, raises his hand. It's the first voluntary movement you've seen from anyone since boarding. The conductor glides over, patient, interested. Where is there? The boy asks. His voice is small, clear. Not afraid. The conductor smiles. Where do you want it to be? It's not an answer. It's a mirror. And somehow that's more honest than any destination could be. Outside, the landscape shifts. You're passing through a city now, or what used to be a city, or what will never become a city. The buildings are skeletal frameworks without walls, structures without substance. You can see the idea of tenements, the ghost of factories, the shadow of churches. All the places that broke you, rendered harmless by incompleteness. The train slows, First time since boarding. You feel it in your stomach, that elevator sensation, the body knowing before the mind. Other children sit up straighter, look around. Some show confusion. Some show fear. Most show nothing. They've been traveling too long, gone too far. The world they left is becoming abstract. A story someone told them about another person. The conductor moves to the front of the car, turns to face you all. His expression is impossible to read, not blank, but containing too many emotions to separate. Joy, sorrow, pride, grief, all at once. First stop, he announces. Evergreen Terminal. The name sounds familiar. You don't know why. Can't remember where you heard it. Your memory is becoming slippery, not erased, just reorganized. The important things are fading while the trivial becomes crystal clear. You can't remember your mother's face, but you can count every stitch in the velvet seat. Can't recall your street address, but you know the exact temperature of the lamp oil. The train stops, complete stillness. The door opens without sound. Beyond it is a platform, not old, not new, just present. Made of wood that looks freshly cut and ancient simultaneously. Gas lamps provide light even though there's no gas. No wicks, just illumination existing because illumination should exist. Everyone off, the conductor says. Not commanding, inviting, like he's opening his home to guests. The children stand, move into the aisle, walk toward the exit with the coordination of a choreographed dance. You join them. Your legs work. Your body functions. But it feels distant. Like you're operating a machine rather than living in flesh. You step onto the platform. The cold hits first. Sharp. Real. More real than anything since you boarded. The air smells like pine and snow and something underneath. Something chemical. Artificial. Like perfume covering decay. The station is empty. Just the platform, the lamps, and a building in the distance. Large. Institutional. Could be a school. Could be a hospital. Could be a prison. The architecture doesn't commit to any specific purpose. Welcome, the conductor says from behind, to the place that wanted you. Other children are arriving, not just from your car. From all 6 cars, dozens of children, maybe 100. Pouring onto the platform in silence. No one speaks. No one cries. No one asks questions. They're too transformed. Too far gone. Too saved. You try to remember why you're here. What convinced you to board. What you were escaping from. The memories are there but fading. Like dreams upon waking. You know you were cold once. Hungry once. Hurt once. But the specifics are dissolving. A woman appears at the edge of the platform, middle-aged, dressed in a gray uniform that looks medical. Her face is kind in the aggressive way of people who work with broken things. She claps her hands once, sharp, decisive. Children, form a line, single file. We have warm beds. Hot soup, everything you need. Everything you need. The words should comfort. Instead, they hollow you out. Make you realize you can't remember what you actually needed. Was it food, warmth, or something else? Something the train took when it gave you safety. The children form a line automatically. You're part of it, moving forward. Each step takes you farther from the train, from the conductor who watches with that unreadable expression, from any possibility of return. You reach the woman. She looks down at you with eyes that have seen this before. Hundreds of times. Thousands. She places a hand on your shoulder, checking, assessing, confirming something. Good, she says. Not to you, to herself. You'll do fine. And as she guides you toward the building, toward whatever waits inside, you turn back for one last look at the train. It's already gone. The platform is empty except for the line of children still being processed. The conductor has vanished. The locomotive has dissolved into the snow that falls in perfect repeating patterns. You are here now. Wherever here is, whatever here means, and going back isn't an option anymore. The building smells like carbolic soap and something sweeter underneath rot, disguised as hygiene. You're inside now, though you don't remember the transition from platform to hallway. Just a sudden shift from cold to warm, from open to enclosed. The corridor stretches ahead with that institutional uniformity white walls. Gas lamps every 10 feet. Doors on both sides numbered in brass that needs polishing. The woman from the platform, she hasn't given her name, and you haven't asked, walks ahead of your line. Her shoes click against tile with metronomic precision. Behind you, more children shuffle forward. Silent, compliant, transformed into something docile by the train's alchemy. This is the processing wing, the woman announces without turning around. Her voice echoes. You'll be assigned quarters based on age and aptitude. Meals are communal. Lessons begin tomorrow. Lessons. The word triggers something. A memory of a different kind of school. Wooden desks. A teacher with chalk dust on her sleeves. Children who fell asleep from exhaustion. You attended for 3 months before your family needed your factory wages. Before education became a luxury you couldn't afford. The line stops at a junction. The woman consults a clipboard that appeared in her hands. You didn't see her pick it up. She just has it now. Girls to the left, boys to the right. Ages 7 to 9 continue straight. The line divides, fractures. You watch as children who traveled together, separate without protest. A girl who sat across from you on the train turns left. You'll never see her again. Somehow you know this with certainty that has nothing to do with logic. You're in the boys group, ages 10 to 12. 8 of you. The woman leads you down the right corridor, through a door marked B Wing, into a dormitory that looks like every orphanage photograph you've ever seen. Rows of metal beds, white linens, small wooden trunks at each bed's foot. Windows set high in the walls, you can see out but barely. Just strips of sky and the endless snow. Your beds are assigned, the woman says, consulting her clipboard again. She points at each of you in turn, calling out numbers. Bed 7, bed 19, your bed 23, far corner, near a radiator that hisses with steam. Night clothes in the trunks. Wash stations through that door. Lights out in 1 hour. She leaves. The door closes with a sound like a bank vault. For the first time since boarding the train, you're alone with your thoughts. They're not good company. You walk to bed 23. Sit on the mattress. It's firm, clean. Better than the one you shared with your sister before what? Before the train? Before she died. The timeline is confused. Your past is becoming mythology. Events you know happened but can't quite feel anymore. Another boy bed 22, right next to yours, sits down heavily. He's older than you. 13, maybe. Too old for the train's usual selection. His face is harder than the others. Less transformed, more aware. You remember your name? He asks. His voice is low, careful. Like he's testing whether speaking is allowed. You open your mouth, close it. Your name was you had a name. You said it 1,000 times. Wrote it on the factory timesheet every morning. Your mother called it when dinner was ready. No, you admit. The word tastes like defeat. The boy nods. Me neither. Been here 3 days. It fades fast. Names, faces, everything before the train. 3 days. Only 3 days. But he looks like he's been here forever. Already has that institutional power. That way of sitting that suggests he's learned the rules. Where is here, you ask? They call it the Evergreen Home for Displaced Children. He says it like he's memorized it. Chartered 1889. Funded by private benefactors. dedicated to the care and education of children without families. But we have families. Do we? The boy's laugh is bitter. Try to remember yours. Really try. See how much is left. You try. Focus. Concentrate. Your mother's face should be immediate. Automatic. Instead, you get impressions. Brown hair. Tired eyes. A voice that sang sometimes, but the details are fog. The specifics are gone, replaced by crystal clear memories of the train, the velvet seats, the conductor's kind smile. They're taking it, you whisper. The memories. Not taking. Trading. You get safety. They get your past. Fair exchange, right? That's what the train does. Runs on suffering. Once it's consumed yours, you don't need to remember it anymore. The horror of it settles slowly. You're being erased. Not killed. Erased. Turned into a blank slate. A child without context. Without history. Without anything that made you, you. Other boys are settling into their beds, opening trunks, finding nightclothes simple cotton, institutional gray. They change mechanically. No modesty. No emotion. Just automated movement. What happens after the memories are gone? You ask. The boy from bed 22 doesn't answer immediately. He's staring at the high windows, at the snow falling in those perfect repeating patterns. Then you become useful, he finally says. Then the real work begins. Before you can ask what that means, a bell rings. Loud. Commanding. The boys around you freeze. Then, in unison, they stand. Walk toward the wash station. The boy from bed 22 stands too. Looks down at you. First rule, when the bell rings, you move. Second rule, don't ask questions during lessons. Third rule, he pauses. His face is something complicated. Don't try to leave. The doors are always locked. And even if they weren't, there's nowhere to go. The train doesn't run backward. He walks away. You sit on bed 23, surrounded by boys who used to be someone else, in a building that shouldn't exist, in a place called Evergreen that has no actual evergreens, and you understand with perfect clarity that you've been saved, which is just another word for lost. The first lesson begins at dawn, but you can't see the sun through the high windows. You're awoken by different bells, harsher than the evening ones. They drill into your skull with mechanical precision. Around you, boys rise from their beds in perfect synchronization. No groaning, no stretching. Just immediate compliance like soldiers or machines. You scramble to follow. Your body is sluggish, confused. Bed 22 is already empty. The boy who warned you is gone, absorbed into the routine you haven't learned yet. The wash station is crowded. 20 boys at 10 sinks, cold water, hard soap that smells like lye. You wash quickly, following the pattern others establish. No one speaks. No one makes eye contact. You're all ghosts sharing the same haunting. Breakfast is in a communal hall. Long tables, benches. The girls are here too separated by an aisle but visible. You scan the faces, looking for the girl from the train. Can't find her. Or maybe you can't remember what she looked like. The details are already blurring. The food is real. Oatmeal, bread, more than you've eaten in months, maybe years. You should be grateful. Instead, you feel sick. Because generosity is always transactional. Nobody feeds you this well without expecting something in return. The woman from the platform, you've learned she's called Matron Winslow, stands at the hall's front. She claps her hands once. The eating stops immediately. Spoons lower. Jaws freeze mid-chew. After breakfast, proceed to your assigned classrooms. Morning lessons are mandatory. Anyone who fails to attend will forfeit evening meal. She doesn't need to explain further. The threat is clear. You eat what you're given, or you don't eat at all. And you've been hungry before real hunger. The kind that makes you chew leather and call it dinner. You're not eager to feel it again. The classroom is on the second floor. Room B7. 12 desks arranged in perfect rows. A chalkboard, books, maps, everything a school should have, except it feels wrong. The maps show countries with incorrect borders. The books have titles you don't recognize. And the clock on the wall runs backward. The teacher enters. A man this time, middle-aged, balding, wire-rimmed spectacles. He looks exactly like every schoolmaster in every Dickens novel, which is probably the point. He's designed to be familiar, unthreatening. Authority disguised as benevolence. "I am Mr. Pemberton," he announces. "I will be teaching you history, geography, and practical mathematics. You will address me as sir. You will raise your hand before speaking. You will not question the curriculum." He writes on the chalkboard, "History is what we choose to remember." "Who can tell me," he says, turning to face the class, "what year we're currently in?" A boy raises his hand. Mr. Pemberton nods. 1892, sir." "Wrong." Mr. Pemberton smiles. It doesn't reach his eyes. "We are in year 1, the year you arrived here. Everything before that is irrelevant, forgotten, consumed by the journey that brought you to safety." He lets that sink in. The implication is clear. Your past doesn't exist. The train didn't bring you through space. It brought you through time. Or rather, it brought you out of time. Into a place where chronology is optional and history is whatever they teach you. The lesson continues. Mr. Pemberton teaches a version of American history that's almost right but fundamentally wrong. The dates are off by decades. The presidents are in the wrong order. The wars have different names. He's not teaching facts. He's teaching replacement, installing new memories over old ones. You try to resist. Try to hold on to what you know is real. But the details are slippery. Was Lincoln president in 1860 or 1870? Did the Civil War last 4 years or 6? The more you question, the less certain you become. By the end of the first lesson, you've forgotten 3 more things about your real life. By lunch, 5 more. By dinner, you can't remember your father's occupation. You know he worked. You know it was hard. But was it the coal mine? The steel mill? The railway? The specifics dissolve like sugar in water. The boy from bed 22, you've learned his designation is Ward 47, sits next to you at dinner. The meal is beef stew. Thick, hot, impossible. It's working faster on you, Ward 47 says quietly. The memory loss. Some kids hold on longer, but you're fading quick. How do I stop it? You don't. That's the point. They're making us into blanks, clean slates. Once we forget everything, they can fill us with anything, make us believe anything. We'll be perfect little citizens who never question because we have no past to compare the present to. But why? The question is desperate. Why take children just to erase them? Ward 47 looks at you with something like pity. Because children are the only resource America has more of than it needs. The factories break them. The mines kill them. The tenements suffocate them. What if someone decided to collect the broken ones? Fix them up? Turn them into something useful? A workforce that's grateful instead of resentful? Compliant instead of rebellious? The implications crystallize slowly. Horrible, perfect, efficient. We're being manufactured. You say, remanufactured. We came in broken. We'll leave fixed. Ready to be deployed wherever we're needed. No families to miss us. No memories to make us homesick. Just useful, grateful children who believed they were saved. Deployed where? Ward 47 shrugs. Don't know yet. Been here 3 days. But I've seen older kids, the ones who've been here longer. They're too perfect, too blank. They smile at everything, agree with everything. They're not children anymore. There's something else. The dinner bell rings. Everyone stands. Returns trays to the kitchen window. Marches to the dormitory for evening washing. The routine is hypnotic, soothing, dangerous. That night, lying in bed 23, you try an experiment. You try to remember your name. Really try. Focus all your remaining mental energy on that single piece of identity. Nothing comes. Just static, white noise where a name should be. You're not you anymore. You're Ward something. A number, a designation, a resource being processed for deployment, and the truly terrifying part, it doesn't hurt as much as it should. Adelaide Morrison broke 3 laws and 1 promise to get the information. The laws were federal mail tampering, railway fraud, impersonating a Pinkerton agent. The promise was to herself that she'd maintain journalistic objectivity, that she wouldn't become the story. All of it shattered when she found the shipping manifests. It's January 2nd, 1893, 7 days after Christmas. 7 days since Robert Whitmore saw his son's face through the train window and lost him to salvation. The seekers have been meeting daily, pooling information, mapping disappearances, trying to find a pattern they can exploit. Adelaide stands in the middle of Robert's tenement apartment, one room that serves as kitchen, bedroom, and war room simultaneously. Maps cover the walls. Red string connects locations. It looks like madness organized into visual form. I found the station, she says without preamble. Everyone stops. 13 parents, all exhausted, all desperate. All looking at Adelaide like she's just announced the location of heaven. What do you mean you found it? Anna Kowalski's voice is sharp. You said it doesn't exist. It doesn't. Not on maps. Not in railway records. But it exists in freight manifests. Adelaide spreads papers across the table that's sticky with spilled coffee and desperation. Look, December 1st through December 25th. Pennsylvania Railroad logged 847 freight deliveries. But when you cross-reference the destination codes with actual stations, there's a discrepancy. She points to a column of numbers. These 17 deliveries were logged to station code EGT, Evergreen Terminal, which officially doesn't exist. But the deliveries were made. Signed for. Confirmed. What was being delivered? Marcus Williams leans closer. Children's items, beds, blankets, school books, medical supplies. Enough for hundreds of children. The silence is heavy, oppressive. Someone's running an operation, Robert says slowly. A facility, unofficial, off the books. Taking displaced children and what? What are they doing with them? I don't know. Adelaide's frustration is palpable. But I know who's funding it. Look at the purchase orders. All routed through a trust, the Evergreen Foundation. Established 1889. Private. No public records. But the founding trustee is listed. She places a photograph on the table. A man in his 50s. Well-dressed. Respectable. The kind of face you see in newspapers above articles about charity and civic virtue. Thomas Harlow Rutherford. Steel magnate, Carnegie's main competitor, worth approximately $40 million. And according to his public statements, he's deeply concerned about America's child problem. Child problem? Anna's voice drips with venom. His words, not mine. He's given speeches about how industrial America is producing thousands of orphans and child workers with no future. How they'll grow into a resentful underclass. How they need to be rescued and rehabilitated before they become a social liability. He's not rescuing them, Robert says. He's collecting them. For what purpose? No one has an answer. The silence stretches. Outside, snow falls. Inside, 13 parents realize they're chasing something bigger and darker than a simple kidnapping operation. We need to find this Evergreen Terminal, Robert finally says. Physically locate it. If the freight deliveries are real, they're going somewhere real. I already tried. Adelaide pulls out another map. The delivery routes all terminate at the same coordinates, just outside Harrisburg. But when I went there, there's nothing. Just empty fields. No buildings. No tracks. Nothing. Then it's hidden, Marcus says. Underground maybe. Or he hesitates. The next words sound insane even before he speaks them. Or it's not fully in our world. Everyone looks at him. Nobody laughs. Because they've all seen things that shouldn't exist. A train that moves without sound. Children vanishing from locked rooms. Evidence that points to impossibility. The train doesn't travel through normal space, Marcus continues. Everyone who's seen it says the same thing. It appears and disappears. Doesn't arrive. Doesn't depart. Just shifts. What if Evergreen Terminal exists in the same space? What if it's there but not quite there? Then how do we reach it? Anna's question is practical. Desperate. The same way the children do, Robert says quietly. We wait for the train. And we board it. It's the plan they've been circling since the beginning. The inevitable conclusion. The only option that makes any sense in a situation that makes no sense. It's suicide, Adelaide says. You don't know what's on that train, where it goes. If you can come back. My son is there, Robert says. That's all I need to know. Around the table, heads nod. 13 parents who've already lost everything willing to lose more. Willing to follow their children into whatever darkness swallowed them. They plan for 3 days. Pooling resources. Gathering supplies. Preparing for a journey into impossibility. On January 5th, they receive word another disappearance. A girl in Philadelphia, 13 years old. Too old for the usual pattern. Something is changing. That night, they station themselves at the location. All 13. Plus Adelaide, who's abandoned any pretense of journalistic distance. She's part of the Seekers now, complicit, invested. The temperature drops, unnatural cold. The kind that comes before the train. Midnight approaches. The street is empty except for them, 14 adults waiting for something that shouldn't exist. Silence before the silence. The train appears. Black, silent, inevitable. Doors opening without hands. Golden light spilling into the darkness. But this time, no children come to board. The train sits empty, waiting, patient. Robert moves first. One step toward the door, then another. The others follow. A line of desperate parents boarding a ghost train, leaving behind a world that failed them and their children, entering a space between spaces where the rules of reality are negotiable. The conductor appears. Same tall figure, same kind face, same terrible certainty. This train doesn't carry adults, he says. Make an exception, Robert says. His voice is steel. Or we'll tear this train apart looking for our children, the conductor considers. His expression shifts through emotions too complex to name. Finally, he steps aside. Last stop is Terminus, he says. You can't come back. Don't want to come back, Robert says. Just want my son. They board. 14 adults in a space designed for children. The seats are too small. The ceiling too low. Everything feels wrong, cramped, like wearing a child's clothes. The door closes. The train begins to move. Through the windows, reality fractures. Trees grow inverted. Snow falls upward. Mountains hollow out and show the stars behind them. The Seekers watch in silence, too exhausted for wonder, too determined for fear. They're going to Evergreen Terminal, going to find their children, going to bring them home or die trying, which, at this point, feels like the same thing. You've been at Evergreen for 6 days when you forget how to cry. Not that you can't cry, the physical mechanism still works. But the emotional trigger is gone, erased. You feel sadness as a concept, an intellectual understanding that something is wrong, but the bodily response has been severed. Like a phone line cut, signal interrupted. The other boys in B Wing noticed before you did. Ward 47 mentioned it during breakfast on day 5. "You're smiling wrong," he said, not looking at you, eyes on his oatmeal. "What?" "Your face. When they make jokes during lessons, when Mr. Pemberton says something supposedly funny, you smile, but it doesn't reach your eyes anymore. You're mimicking happiness instead of feeling it. You tried to protest, tried to prove him wrong, but he was right. You could feel the absence, a hollow where emotions used to live. The train had taken your suffering to fuel its journey. Now Evergreen was taking everything else, sanding you down, smoothing rough edges, turning you into something polished and blank. The lessons have become more explicit, less about history or mathematics, more about compliance, gratitude, proper behavior. Mr. Pemberton stands at the chalkboard daily, writing new rules in that careful script. Obedience is safety. Gratitude is happiness. Questions are selfishness. You copy them into your notebook. Memorize them. The part of you, a shrinking, desperate part, knows this is wrong. Knows you're being programmed like one of Edison's phonographs. Grooves cut into soft material, ready to play back whatever message they've recorded. Today's lesson is about purpose. You are fortunate, Mr. Pemberton says, pacing before the class. More fortunate than you can understand. You've been rescued from lives of meaningless suffering, given shelter, education, purpose. What you do with these gifts will define your worth. A girl raises her hand. Ward 112 from Kai Wing. You don't know her real name. She doesn't know it either. What purpose, sir? Mr. Pemberton smiles. It's his kind smile. The one that makes you want to trust him while your body screams run. You'll learn soon. Those who've completed their education are already serving, already fulfilling their potential. Soon you'll join them. Won't that be wonderful? The class nods in unison. Even you. Even though you don't believe it. Even though some buried part of your consciousness is screaming. After lessons, there's work duty. Everyone participates. The younger children fold laundry in the basement. The middle group, your group, works in the kitchen, preparing meals for hundreds. The older ones, the ones who've been here longest, have different assignments. You never see them during work hours. They disappear into parts of the building that remain locked and unexplained. You're peeling potatoes when Ward 47 drops his knife. It's not an accident. Too deliberate. Too controlled. The knife hits the floor with a clang that makes the kitchen supervisor look over. Ward 47 bends to retrieve it. As he rises, his mouth barely moves. Tonight, after lights out. Don't sleep. He returns to peeling. The supervisor goes back to her clipboard. You continue working, heart suddenly pounding, because that was the first time in 6 days anyone has suggested deviating from routine. Lights out comes at 9. The bells ring. The boys of B Wing wash, change, climb into beds. Within minutes, the dormitory is full of breathing, sleeping, compliance. You lie awake, eyes open, staring at the ceiling where pipes run in geometric patterns, counting heartbeats. Wondering if Ward 47 was serious, or if you misunderstood, or if you've finally gone insane. At midnight, he appears next to your bed, silent, a shadow detached from darker shadows. Come on, quietly, you follow. Through the dormitory where boys sleep with unnatural stillness. Into the corridor lit by gas lamps turned low. Ward 47 moves like he's done this before. Knows which floorboards creak, where shadows provide cover. You trail behind, terrified and grateful in equal measure. He leads you to a door marked maintenance, pulls a key from his pocket. Where did he get a key? Unlocks it. Inside is darkness and the smell of industrial cleaning supplies. How long have you been planning this? You whisper. Since day one. His voice is low, urgent. I'm not like the others. The train didn't take everything. I don't know why. Maybe I boarded wrong. Maybe I'm broken in a way that doesn't fix, but I remember things. Not everything, but enough. Remember what? That I had a sister, that we were supposed to stay together, that the train separated us, that she's somewhere in this building, and I need to find her before they finish erasing her. It's the most words he's spoken since you met, the most emotion you've seen from anyone at Evergreen. It makes him real in a way the others aren't. Makes him human instead of processed. What are you asking me to do? Help me search. The older kids, the ones who've been here longest, they disappear during work hours. Go somewhere else. I think that's where they're finishing the process. Where they're being prepared for whatever comes after Evergreen. If my sister is almost done, she'll be there. And I'll miss my chance. It's insane. Suicidal. If you're caught, there will be consequences. Punishment. Maybe something worse. But Ward 47 is looking at you with eyes that still remember how to feel. And you realize he's giving you something precious. A choice. The first real choice since boarding the train. Okay, you say. Let's find her. He smiles. It's broken. Real. Human. And for the first time in 6 days, you feel something other than emptiness. The service corridors snake through Evergreen like intestines through a body. Ward 47 knows them somehow. Has mapped them during days of careful observation, stolen moments, pieces of information assembled into navigation. You follow him through passages that smell like stone and chemical cleaners, past junctions marked with codes that mean nothing to you, but seem to guide him perfectly. Where did you learn the layout? You whisper. Watch the staff. They're creatures of habit. Same routes, same timing. The trick is being invisible. Being so compliant they forget you're capable of independent thought. Smart. Terrifying. The kind of strategy that suggests Ward 47 is either brilliant or has been broken in ways that make him more dangerous than the docile children they're manufacturing. You descend stairs, metal grates. Industrial architecture hidden behind the facade of institutional care. The temperature drops with each level. The air grows thicker. You're going underground. Deep underground. Toward the foundation of whatever Evergreen actually is. The corridor ends at a heavy door. Steel. Riveted. With a window at eye level for adults, not children. Ward 47 stands on his toes. Peers through. God. He breathes. You look. It takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. Then you see it. A factory floor. Enormous. Lit by electric lights that buzz with that distinctive Edison hum. Rows of workstations. Machinery you don't recognize. And children. Hundreds of children. All wearing identical gray uniforms. All working in perfect synchronization. They're assembling something. Components. Pieces of larger machines. Moving with the efficiency of trained factory workers, which is exactly what they are. But there's something wrong about it. The movements are too perfect. Too automated. These children aren't just working. They're performing a choreographed dance. Programmed. Optimized. This is where they go, Ward 47 says. After Evergreen finishes processing them. After the memories are gone and the compliance is complete. They become workers. Perfect workers. Grateful. Efficient. Inhuman. What are they making? Does it matter? They're making whatever they're told to make. For whoever paid to collect them. Rutherford's steel empire, probably. Or maybe other industrialists who realize that broken children can be fixed and deployed. That suffering is a resource to be harvested and refined. The horror is elegant, efficient, perfectly American. Take the problem, child labor, that creates public outcry. Families that object to their children being consumed, and solve it. Remove the objecting families. Erase the children's memories of having families. Turn trauma into gratitude. Make them believe they're lucky to be here, lucky to work, lucky to have been rescued from lives that were killing them anyway. It's humanitarian exploitation, salvation as slavery, the most advanced form of cruelty, making your victims thank you. Do you see her? You ask. Your sister? Ward 47 scans the factory floor. His eyes are desperate, searching. Then they stop. Lock onto someone. There. Station 47. Third row. You follow his gaze. A girl. Maybe 11. Brown hair pulled back severely. Gray uniform. Moving through her tasks with mechanical precision. She looks healthy. Well-fed. Completely empty. Are you sure that's her? I'm sure. His voice breaks. I remember her face. It's all I remember. Everything else is gone but her face. And that's her. That's Margaret. Margaret. A name. The first name you've heard since arriving at Evergreen. It sounds sacred, ancient, like a word from a dead language. How do we get her out? We don't. Ward 47's voice is flat. Look at her. She's gone. Whatever made her my sister is erased. She wouldn't recognize me. Wouldn't come if I called. She's been perfected. Then why did you bring me here? Because you needed to see it. Needed to understand what's coming for you. For all of us. In a few more days, maybe weeks, your processing will be complete. You'll forget everything. Stop resisting. Start smiling correctly. And then you'll come here. Work until you break. Get replaced by the next batch of rescued children. The cycle continues forever. He's crying. Actually crying. The only person at Evergreen capable of tears. It makes him seem younger and older simultaneously. I can't save her, he says. But maybe I can save you. Maybe if one person knows the truth, remembers the truth, it means something. Maybe it makes the resistance mean something, even if it fails. You want to argue, want to say there's a way out. A way to reverse the process. But you can't, because you're already forgetting, already smoothing, already becoming what they want you to be. What do we do? The question is defeated, realistic. We go back to bed. We pretend we never saw this. We keep existing until we stop existing as ourselves. And maybe, if there's anything after this, we'll remember we tried. It's not hope. It's the opposite of hope. It's acceptance dressed in defiance. You turn away from the window, from the factory floor, from Margaret, who used to be Ward 47's sister and is now Station 47, from the future that's waiting for you with patient inevitability. As you climb back through the service corridors, back toward the dormitory where compliant boys sleep their compliant sleep, you feel a last piece of your real self crystallizing, hardening, one final memory that refuses to dissolve. Somewhere you had a mother. You can't see her face, can't remember her voice, but you know she existed. No, she probably thinks you're dead. No, she's wrong. You're not dead. You're something worse. You're forgotten, erased, repurposed, and by morning, you'll have forgotten that you know this. The train deposits them in a place that shouldn't exist. Robert Whitmore steps onto the platform at Evergreen Terminal and immediately knows he's somewhere impossible. The air is wrong, too clean, too warm, too artificial. The snow falls in patterns that repeat exactly. The station building sits in angles that hurt to look at directly. Behind him, 13 other adults emerge from the train. They look shell-shocked, traumatized by the journey. Adelaide Morrison is the last off, and she's frantically writing in her notebook, trying to capture details before they dissolve from memory. The conductor remains on the train, watching. His face shows something new, concern. "You shouldn't be here," he says. Not threatening, warning. Adults weren't meant to see this place. "Where's my son?" Robert's voice is steel wrapped in desperation. The conductor gestures toward the building. Inside. "All of them. But they're not who you remember." The train takes payment. The facility completes the transaction. "If you proceed, you'll see what your children have become." "I don't recommend it." Robert doesn't respond, just walks toward the building. The others follow. A ragged line of parents who've already lost everything and have nothing left to fear. The conductor watches them go. His expression is complicated, sad, almost proud. Then the train begins to dissolve, not leaving, just fading, returning to whatever impossible space spawned it. The building's entrance is unlocked. Of course it is. They're expected. Or perhaps locks don't matter here. Perhaps the real prison isn't physical. Inside, they find Matron Winslow waiting in a reception area that looks like a hospital lobby designed by someone who'd never felt human warmth. Everything is white, clean, sterile. She holds her clipboard like a shield. "Parents." She says it like a diagnosis. "We don't usually receive parents. We're here for our children." Anna Kowalski steps forward. Small woman. Enormous anger. "You're going to return them. Now." Matron Winslow's laugh is musical, practiced, cruel. "Return them? To what? To tenements where they freeze? To factories where they lose fingers? To lives that were killing them slowly? We saved your children, gave them shelter, education, purpose, and you want to drag them back to poverty? They're not yours to save," Marcus Williams growls. "Weren't they? Where were you when they were starving? When they were working 16-hour shifts? When they were dying of diseases you couldn't afford to treat? You abandoned them long before we rescued them. We just made it official." The words land like punches, because they're partially true. These parents were poor, desperate, failing. They loved their children but couldn't protect them from an America that ate children like fuel. "I want to see my son." Robert's voice cuts through the argument. James Whitmore, 9 years old. Taken December 7th. Where is he? Matron Winslow consults her clipboard. Ward 89. Currently in Level 2 education. I can arrange a viewing. But I warn you, he won't know you. The transition process is thorough. Memories of previous life are removed for the children's psychological well-being. They can't miss what they don't remember. You erased him. Robert's fists clench. You took my son and erased him. We freed him. From you, from poverty. From a future of suffering. He's happy now. Genuinely happy. Isn't that what you wanted? The question hangs. Poisonous. Perfect. Because what parent doesn't want their child to be happy? What if happiness requires erasure? What if the cost of saving them is losing them? Adelaide steps forward. She's been silent, observing, recording. Now she speaks with journalist precision. Show us these happy children. Let us see what you've created. Matron Winslow smiles. Of course. Follow me. She leads them through corridors that smell like carbolic soap and lies. Past dormitories where children sleep in perfect rows. Past classrooms where lessons are being delivered in that mechanical tone that bypasses consciousness and installs directly into behavior. They reach an observation window. Beyond it, a recreation room. Dozens of children playing, or performing play. Moving through games with choreographed precision. Laughing on cue. Smiling correctly. They seem happy, Matron Winslow says. Don't they? Robert scans the room, searching. Then he sees him, James, his son, playing chess with another boy. moving pieces with mechanical efficiency. His face is fuller, cleaner, completely empty of anything that made him James. "That's not my son," Robert whispers. "Of course it is." Ward 89. Arrived December 7th, excelling in all subjects. Scheduled for deployment to manufacturing sector in 3 weeks. He'll have a productive life, meaningful work, everything you couldn't provide. He doesn't remember me. He doesn't remember suffering. Isn't that better? Robert's hand goes to the glass, spreads fingers against it. On the other side, James glances up, looks directly at his father. No recognition, no emotion, just a momentary pause before returning to chess. "James!" Robert's voice breaks. "James, it's Dad, it's me." The boy doesn't respond, can't hear through the glass, or chooses not to hear, or has been programmed so thoroughly that paternal recognition is impossible. Around the observation window, other parents are finding their children. Anna Kowalski sees Sarah. Thomas Chen sees Wei. Marcus Williams sees his twin daughters, playing separately, not remembering their sisters. The grief is overwhelming, collective. These parents traveled through impossible space to find their children, and they've succeeded. But the children they found aren't the children they lost. Those children are gone, consumed by the train's engine, erased by Evergreen's process, replaced by perfect, empty, grateful copies. "You're monsters," Adelaide says quietly. "You're taking traumatized children and turning them into machines. We're taking broken children and fixing them," Matron Winslow corrects. "There's a difference. America produces thousands of damaged children annually. Child labor, poverty, neglect. We're solving that problem, creating productive citizens from human waste. They're not waste. They're children. They were children. Now they're resources, optimized, efficient, ready to serve society in ways their previous lives never allowed. Isn't that beautiful? It's the logic of industry applied to humanity. The same thinking that justified 14-hour workdays and child labor. Take raw material, process it, output product. The fact that the raw material is children and the product is erased humans doesn't change the formula. Robert turns from the window. His face has gone cold, calculated. He's made a decision. We're taking them back. You can't. Matron Winslow's smile doesn't waver. They don't want to go. Watch. She presses a button. An intercom crackles. Ward 89. Please come to observation room 3. They wait. The door opens. James enters. Stands at attention. Perfect posture. Empty eyes. Ward 89. Matron Winslow says, "This man claims to be your father. Do you recognize him?" James looks at Robert, studies him with clinical detachment, searching for data that isn't there. "No, ma'am, I have no father. I was rescued by the Evergreen Foundation. I'm grateful for my second chance." The words are rehearsed, programmed, but James believes them. Absolutely. "James," Robert's voice cracks. "It's me, your dad. We lived on 5th Street. Your mother made potato soup on Sundays. You had a dog named Copper. You remember. You have to remember." James's face doesn't change. "I'm sorry, sir. You're confused. I've never had a dog. I've always lived at Evergreen. This is my home." Robert reaches out, tries to touch his son's shoulder. James steps back. Automatic. Trained. "Please don't touch me, sir." Physical contact with strangers isn't permitted. Strangers. The word destroys Robert. You can see it happen, the collapse. The realization that he's lost. That they've all lost. That whatever they came here to rescue is already gone. "How do we get them back?" Anna Kowalski asks. "Tell us. There must be a way." "There isn't," Matron Winslow says. "The process is irreversible. The memories aren't suppressed, they're erased, overwritten. You could spend years trying to remind them. They'd never recover what they were, because they aren't anymore. Then we shut you down, Marcus Williams says. Expose this operation. Bring in authorities. What authorities? We're funded by Thomas Harlow Rutherford. We have legal charters, government contracts. We're processing homeless children into productive workers. Technically, we're heroes. You're just hysterical parents who can't accept that someone else saved your children when you couldn't. The trap is complete. Perfect. They've been outmaneuvered by an enemy they didn't understand. Can't fight. Can't expose without sounding insane. Adelaide is still writing, documenting. But even she knows this story will never be believed. A phantom train that collects children? A hidden facility that erases memories? It sounds like fantasy, hysteria, the ravings of parents who can't cope with loss. What happens now? Robert asks. Defeated. Empty. You leave, Matron Winslow says gently. Return to your lives. Mourn if you must. But understand that your children are better off. They're safe, happy, useful. Everything you wanted for them. We wanted them to be ours. They never were. Children don't belong to parents. They belong to themselves. And we've helped them become the best versions of themselves. You should be grateful. The word grateful echoes through the observation room. The same word being programmed into the children. The same word used to justify everything. Gratitude as weapon, as prison, as replacement for love. The seekers are escorted out, through corridors, past dormitories, back to the entrance where this impossible journey began. They emerge onto the platform at Evergreen Terminal. The train is waiting. The conductor stands by the door. His expression is sympathetic, knowing. I told you not to look, he says. Take us back, Robert says. Take us home. There's a cost. There's always a cost. The train runs on suffering. To return, you'll need to pay. What do you want? Your memory of this place, of what you saw, of what your children have become. The train will consume it. You'll wake up tomorrow believing your children simply vanished. No answers, no closure, just absence. But you'll be able to continue living without this knowledge destroying you. It's mercy disguised as cruelty, or cruelty disguised as mercy. The chance to forget what they've learned. To return to simple grief instead of complicated horror. One by one, the seekers board. They have no choice. Can't stay. Can't fight. Can't save what's already lost. As the train begins to move, carrying them back through impossible space toward the reality they left, Robert Whitmore looks out the window, sees the building growing smaller, sees his son inside somewhere, playing chess, smiling correctly, being happy in a way that isn't happiness. And he makes a choice. He doesn't sleep, doesn't let the train take the memory, fights to stay conscious, carves the truth into his mind with the same determination that kept him alive in the coal mines. When the train deposits them back in Pittsburgh, back in the real world, back in January 1893, the others stumble off confused, disoriented. They remember traveling somewhere, remember failure, but the specifics are fog. Robert remembers everything, and he knows exactly what he has to do. Robert Whitmore becomes a ghost in his own life. He returns to work, goes through motions, descends into the coal mine each morning with men who are dying slowly and don't know it. But he's different now. Hollowed out by knowledge, carrying the weight of a truth that can't be shared because no one would believe it. The other seekers have dispersed. Anna Kowalski remembers having a daughter but can't recall her face. Marcus Williams knows he lost children but isn't sure how many. Thomas Chun moved back to San Francisco, chasing a memory that won't crystallize. They're all wounded in ways they can't articulate, grieving losses they can't define. Only Adelaide Morrison retains fragments. Journalist's instinct. Her notebook entries from the journey are gibberish words that don't form sentences, observations that reference things that don't exist. But she knows she saw something, knows there's a story, can't quite grasp it. Robert visits her in February. She's working late at the Globe, surrounded by papers, chasing leads that go nowhere. "I remember," he says without preamble. Adelaide looks up, her eyes widen. Something clicks. The train. Everything. The train. The facility. James. What they did to him. The memory floods back for her, partial, fragmented, like a photograph developing. She gasps, grabs her desk for support. "How did you?" "Didn't let myself sleep. Fought it. The train wanted to take the memory as payment. I refused to pay. What do we do with this information?" It's the question Robert has been asking himself for weeks. What do you do when you know something impossible? When you have evidence that will never be believed? When the truth sounds like madness? "We document it," he says. "Everything. Write it down. Make it real on paper. Maybe someone will believe us. Maybe not. But at least it'll exist outside our heads." They work through the night. Adelaide typing, Robert dictating, creating a manuscript that reads like Gothic horror, but is actually testimony. They include everything: the disappearances, the train, Evergreen Terminal, the factory floor, the erased children, Thomas Harlow Rutherford's involvement. By dawn, they have 40 pages. Adelaide reads through it once, puts it down, looks at Robert with something like pity. "No one will publish this." It sounds insane. "I know. The Globe will fire me if I try to run it. I know. Rutherford will sue us into oblivion. I know. So what's the point?" Robert leans back, exhausted, hollow. "The point is, it's true. The point is, those children existed, had names, had parents, had lives. And someone decided they were worth less than factory efficiency. Someone decided suffering was a resource to be harvested. Someone decided to erase them and call it salvation. And documenting it changes what? Maybe nothing. Probably nothing. But if we don't write it down, if we let the train take the memory, and it's like it never happened. Those children become statistics. Another batch of orphans and runaways. Nobody remembers they were stolen, erased, repurposed. Adelaide considers this. She's a journalist, believes in the power of truth. But she's also practical, knows truth without evidence is just opinion. And opinion without platform is just noise. What if we don't publish it? She says slowly, what if we just preserve it? Write it down. Seal it. Leave it for someone in the future who might be able to use it. A time capsule of horror? A testimony. Evidence that we saw, that we knew, that we tried. It's not satisfying, not justice, not rescue, but it's something. A small act of defiance against erasure. They create 3 copies. One Adelaide keeps, hidden in her apartment. One Robert buries in a metal box in his backyard. One they send to the Library of Congress with instructions to seal it for 50 years. Then they try to resume their lives. Robert lasts 3 months. The knowledge eats him. Every day in the mine, he thinks about James. Imagines his son in the factory underneath Evergreen, assembling components, smiling correctly, being grateful. The coal dust fills Robert's lungs, but it's the memory that suffocates him. On May 15th, 1893, Robert Whitmore descends into the mine for his final shift. He's been acting strange. Colleagues report later. Distant. Talking to himself. At 2 p.m., there's a collapse in Section 7. 3 men are killed instantly. Robert is found alive, trapped under debris, both legs crushed. He dies in the hospital 3 days later. His last words, recorded by a nurse who thought he was delirious. Tell James the first tried. Tell him I remembered. Adelaide Morrison continues working at the Globe, writes safe stories, society news, human interest pieces. She never mentions trains or vanished children or impossible facilities. But sometimes, late at night, she takes out the manuscript, reads it, makes sure it's still real. That she didn't imagine the whole thing. She dies in 1917. Influenza. In her will, she leaves specific instructions. Her papers should be donated to the Boston Public Library, including the manuscript about the children and the train. The librarians file it under fiction unpublished. Nobody reads it for decades. The children at Evergreen continue being processed, deployed, replaced by new batches. The operation expands. By 1900, there are 3 facilities. By 1910, 7. All hidden in the margins between reality and what if. All funded by industrialists who realized that America's child problem can be solved through systematic erasure and repurposing. Thomas Harlow Rutherford dies in 1920. Wealthy, respected, philanthropist. His obituary mentions his charitable work with orphan children. Hundreds attend his funeral. Nobody mentions the thousands of children who passed through his facilities. Nobody knows they existed. The train continues running. Every Christmas season, silent, black, collecting children who are suffering enough to fuel its impossible engine, offering escape to those who need it desperately enough not to question where they're going. And somewhere in a dormitory at Evergreen, in a factory beneath reality, in a space between what is and what almost was, you lie in bed 23. You don't remember your name. Don't remember your parents. Don't remember the life you had before. You just know you're warm, fed, safe, grateful. You're a success story, a saved child, a resource optimized. You're everything America wanted you to be. And the really terrifying part? You're genuinely happy. Because happiness, when you can't remember what you've lost, is indistinguishable from oblivion. The story changes as it spreads. Stories always do. By 1910, people in Pennsylvania coal towns tell their children about the Christmas train. It's become folklore, a ghost story. Parents use it as warning. Be good, or the train will take you. Children dare each other to watch for it on Christmas Eve, but the details have mutated. The train isn't sinister anymore. It's magical. Takes good children to a wonderful place. A reward for virtue. The darkness has been sanded off. The horror replaced with wonder. A teacher in Philadelphia collects these stories. Margaret Sutter. She's fascinated by regional folklore, the way tragedy transforms into myth. In 1915, she publishes a small book, Pennsylvania Ghost Trains and Other Tales. The Evergreen story appears on page 47, heavily sanitized. Local legend speaks of a midnight train that appears each Christmas Eve to transport deserving children to a magical realm where they are forever cared for and happy. While no verified accounts exist, the persistence of this tale suggests deep cultural anxiety about childhood welfare during the industrial era. The footnote mentions Adelaide Morrison's unpublished manuscript, describes it as elaborate fiction, likely inspired by the author's grief over the child disappearances of 1892 to 1893. Fiction. That's what it becomes. That's what all inconvenient truths become when they're too horrible to accept. In 1935, a children's book author named Christopher Van Allsburg, no relation to the later famous illustrator, publishes The Polar Railway. It's based loosely on the Pennsylvania legends. A boy boards a mysterious train on Christmas Eve, travels to the North Pole, meets Santa, returns home changed but happy. The book sells modestly, is forgotten, gets rediscovered in the 1980s by another author doing research. The legend metastasizes, grows, becomes divorced from its origins. By the 1990s, nobody remembers there were real disappearances, real children, real horror. The Polar Express is just a charming Christmas story. All magic, no darkness. The perfect holiday tale for a country that prefers its trauma packaged as entertainment. The truth sits in archives. Adelaide Morrison's manuscript in Boston. Robert Whitmore's buried box in Pittsburgh, dug up by accident in 1965 during construction, dismissed as an elaborate hoax. The Library of Congress copy, sealed until 1943, opened briefly, refiled as Delusional Writings Industrial Era. Evergreen Terminal still exists. Or rather, it exists in the spaces between. The facilities expanded through the 20th century. Different names, different owners, but the same operation. Taking traumatized children, erasing them, redeploying them as workers, soldiers, servants, whatever society needs. The train still runs, still collects. The children who board in 2025 are different from those in 1892. They come from different traumas, flee different horrors, but the mechanism is identical. Offer escape. Extract suffering as fuel. Deliver passengers to processing centers where they're transformed into something useful. You'd think someone would notice, would connect disappearances to strange train sightings, would investigate the pattern. But America has gotten better at not seeing what it doesn't want to see. Child trafficking is acknowledged. Runaways are documented. But phantom trains? Memory erasure facilities? That's conspiracy theory, insanity, fiction. The survivors never talk. The few children who escaped Evergreen, and there are always a few. Statistical anomalies, broken programs, can't articulate what happened. Their memories are too damaged. Their testimony too incoherent. They're dismissed as traumatized, delusional, broken, which is true. They are broken. But they're broken by design, not accident. In 1998, a sociology doctoral student at Penn State writes a dissertation on child disappearances in late 19th century Pennsylvania. She uncovers Adelaide Morrison's manuscript, reads it, dismisses it as hysterical female writing common to the period, where personal trauma was sublimated into elaborate fantasy narratives. The dissertation wins awards, is published as a book, becomes required reading in American history courses. Adelaide's testimony is used as an example of how grief creates mythology. Nobody considers it might be true. In 2010, a filmmaker makes a documentary about the 1892 disappearances. The Lost Children of the Gilded Age. It's well-researched, sympathetic, presents the disappearances as unsolved mysteries, likely explained by child trafficking rings and industrial accidents. The documentary wins an Emmy, screens at festivals. Nobody mentions trains that run on suffering or facilities that erase children, because those details are in Adelaide's manuscript, which everyone knows is fiction. In 2025 right now, today, as you read this, the train is running. Somewhere. In some margin between realities. Collecting children who need to escape, who are suffering enough to fuel its impossible engine. Delivering them to facilities that no longer use names like Evergreen, that hide behind corporate shells and non-profit fronts, that process children into products using techniques more sophisticated than simple memory erasure. The children board willingly, or willingly enough. Because what choice do they have? Stay in situations that are destroying them, or accept the offer of somewhere better, even if the cost is everything that made them themselves? And America continues not noticing, not investigating, not caring enough to look beyond the comfortable myths. Because the truth is uncomfortable. The truth is that we've been harvesting children for profit since the Industrial Revolution. The methods change. The locations change. The justifications change. But the mechanism stays the same. Take the vulnerable, erase the inconvenient, deploy the useful. The Polar Express is a beloved Christmas story. It brings joy to millions. It's magic and wonder and childhood wishes fulfilled. It's also a ghost story, a horror story, a true crime documentary waiting to be uncovered. But we prefer the magic. We always do. So the train keeps running. The children keep disappearing. The legend keeps growing. And somewhere, in a building that exists between what is and what almost was, you sit at your workstation. You don't remember your name. Don't remember your family. Don't remember the person you used to be. You just know you're productive, useful, grateful. You're exactly what you were meant to become. And you're happy. You must be happy, because you can't remember being anything else. Her name is Dr. Sarah Chun, and she doesn't believe in ghost stories. She's a historian specializing in industrial-era America, specifically child labor practices and social reform movements. In 2024, she's researching a book about the disappearance crisis of 1892 to 1893. A footnote in history that's always bothered her because the numbers don't add up. Official records show approximately 200 children disappeared across 9 states between December 1st and December 25th, 1892. All working-class families. All vanished without trace. Then the disappearances stopped. Abruptly. Completely. No explanation in police records. No resolution. No closure. Just silence. Sarah has been excavating archives for 3 years, reading police reports, railway manifests, newspaper morgues, church records, everything she can find about those missing children. And she keeps encountering references to Adelaide Morrison's manuscript. Most historians dismiss it. Sarah almost did too. But she's thorough, obsessive. Decides to actually read the damn thing instead of accepting other scholars' dismissals. She requests it from Boston Public Library's special collections. It takes 6 weeks to arrive a photocopy of a photocopy, pages yellowed, text faded. She reads it in her office at Columbia University on a Tuesday afternoon in October 2024. By the 3rd page, she stops taking notes. By the 10th, she stopped breathing regularly. By the time she finishes, it's dark outside and her coffee is cold, and she knows, with the certainty that defines career-destroying epiphanies, that Adelaide Morrison was telling the truth. Not metaphorical truth, not emotional truth. Actual, factual, impossible truth. The manuscript is too detailed, too specific. Contains information that couldn't be fabricated or imagined, railway codes, facility layouts, bureaucratic procedures. Adelaide Morrison wasn't writing fiction. She was documenting testimony. Sarah does what any rational academic would do. She tries to verify. Spends the next 6 months cross-referencing every detail in the manuscript against historical records. The children Adelaide mentions all real. Birth certificates, factory employment records, school rosters. They existed. They disappeared. Their families filed missing persons reports that went nowhere. The railway anomaly's real. Telegraph records from 1892 show signals from station codes that don't correspond to actual locations. EGT, Evergreen Terminal. Documented but unexplained. Thomas Harlow Rutherford Reel, steel magnate, Carnegie's competitor. Founded the Evergreen Foundation in 1889. Public records show it as a charity for orphan children. But financial records, the ones Sarah digs up from dusty banking archives, show millions of dollars flowing through it. Far more than would be needed for a simple orphanage. The money was going somewhere, being spent on something. But there's no accounting, no receipts, just funds disappearing into a void. In March 2025, Sarah makes a decision that will either destroy her career or redefine it. She's going to find Evergreen Terminal, physically located, prove it existed. She starts with the freight manifests Adelaide mentioned. Pennsylvania Railroad Archives at the Historical Society have them original documents signed and dated. Deliveries to EGT. Station code that officially doesn't exist. But freight deliveries are physical. They go somewhere physical. Sarah traces the routes, follows the logistics, narrows the location to a specific area outside Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. In April 2025, she drives there, alone. Academic suicide if she's wrong. Career-defining discovery if she's right. The coordinates lead to nothing. Empty fields, no buildings, no evidence of railway infrastructure, just grass and snow and wind. Sarah stands in the field, freezing, feeling ridiculous. Wasted 6 months on a ghost story. Wasted research funds. Wasted her reputation. She's about to leave when she notices something. The snow is falling in patterns. Perfect patterns. Geometric. Repeating. She stares at it. Takes out her phone. Records video. Watches the flakes fall in identical trajectories. Same shapes. Same timing. Like it's on a loop. This isn't weather. This is something else. Sarah walks forward. The air changes. Becomes thicker. Colder. Her breath fogs in shapes that linger too long. She's entering something. Crossing a threshold. Moving between. She sees it. A building. Large. Institutional. Appears suddenly like a photograph developing. Was there all along. Hidden in a space her eyes couldn't process until she was close enough. Evergreen Terminal. Actually existing. Actually real. Sarah approaches slowly. Every historian instinct screaming that this is impossible. Every sense confirming it's real. The building is abandoned or appears to be. Windows dark. Doors locked. But the structure is intact. Maintained somehow despite decades of disuse. She finds a service entrance. The lock is rusted but functional. She picks it, another skill historians shouldn't have but sometimes need. Inside is darkness and that smell, carbolic soap and decay. She uses her phone flashlight. Explores cautiously. The interior is exactly as Adelaide described. Corridors with numbered doors. Dormitories with rows of beds. Classrooms with chalkboards still showing faded writing. Obedience is safety. Gratitude is happiness. Questions are selfishness. Sarah photographs everything. Documents every detail. This is archaeological gold. Evidence of an illegal operation that lasted decades. Proof that Adelaide Morrison wasn't insane. She descends stairs. Follows the path Ward 47 took. Reaches the heavy door. Looks through the window. The factory floor is still there. Machinery rusted but intact. Workstations abandoned. But the electric lights, they're still on. Still buzzing. Still burning after decades without maintenance. Impossible, but real. Sarah's hands shake as she photographs. This is her career. This is her book. This is. She hears footsteps. Behind her. In corridors that should be empty. She turns. Flashlight cutting through darkness. Sees figures. Children. Dozens of them. Moving through the abandoned facility with purpose. All wearing gray uniforms. All silent. They don't see her. Or they see through her. Or she's seeing through time. Or Sarah runs. Back through corridors. Upstairs. Toward the exit. The children don't pursue. Just continue their routines. Automated. Eternal. Ghosts or programs or something worse. She bursts out of the building into daylight that feels wrong, gets in her car, drives back to Harrisburg shaking. Doesn't stop until she's in a hotel, door locked, reviewing photos on her camera. They're all there. The building, the dormitories, the factory floor, the electric lights that shouldn't work, but no children. The photos show empty corridors. Sarah downloads everything, backs it up 3 different ways, creates a research folder, begins writing, not an academic paper, a complete account, everything, Adelaide's manuscript, her investigation, the discovery, the photos. She works for 2 weeks straight, barely sleeping, sustained by coffee and the knowledge that she's uncovered something important, something real, something that will change how we understand American history. On May 1st, 2025, she submits her book proposal to her publisher. The Evergreen Files: How Industrial America Trafficked Children Through Impossible Space. 400 pages, extensively documented, groundbreaking research. The publisher rejects it, politely, firmly. Too speculative. Insufficient evidence. Reads like conspiracy theory rather than serious scholarship. Sarah tries other publishers. Academic presses, popular presses. Nobody will touch it. The photos aren't enough. The documents aren't enough. The building's existence isn't enough. Because nobody wants to believe that America systematically erased children and called it salvation. Nobody wants to admit that the infrastructure for this still exists. Nobody wants to ask if it's still operating. So Sarah does what Robert and Adelaide did. She preserves it, creates a website, uploads everything, documents, photos, analysis, makes it freely available, lets it exist in the digital archive where truth goes to die or wait for resurrection. The website gets 47 hits in the first month, mostly from conspiracy theorists and paranormal enthusiasts. Nobody takes it seriously. Sarah's colleagues quietly distance themselves. Her tenure review is postponed. Her grants are denied. She's destroyed her career to document something nobody wants to believe. But it's done. It's preserved. It exists. And somewhere in the margins between realities, in spaces that conventional physics doesn't account for, the train still runs, still collects, still delivers children to facilities where they're processed, deployed, erased. The operation has evolved, gone digital, uses algorithms instead of conductors, targets online instead of in tenements. But the mechanism is identical. Take the vulnerable, erase the inconvenient, deploy the useful, and we continue not noticing. Because noticing would require admitting that we've built a society that treats children as resources, that we've always treated them as resources, that every generation finds new ways to justify the same exploitation. The Polar Express is a beloved Christmas story. It's also true. Both things can be real. America has always been good at holding contradictions. You wake up in bed 23 on a morning that feels different. Can't articulate how. Can't point to specifics. But something in the air has changed, become thinner, more permeable. Like reality is loosening its grip. The bells ring. Boys rise from beds. Routine continues. But you move slowly, deliberately, testing whether the programming still holds. It does, mostly. But there are gaps now. Spaces where commands should be automatic but require conscious choice. The erosion has begun. You don't know why. Don't know what changed. But you feel it. The first cracks in the system that's held you for how long? Days? Weeks? Years? Time is uncertain here. At breakfast, Ward 47 sits next to you. He looks different too, more present. Like he's inhabiting his body instead of operating it remotely. You feel it? He whispers. So quiet the monitors won't catch it. You nod. Barely. Don't know what it is, but recognize it nonetheless. Something's breaking, he continues. The containment. I've been here longer than anyone, 6 months, maybe more. Watched hundreds of kids get processed and deployed. But in the last week, some of us are waking up. Remembering fragments. The programming is failing. Why? Don't know. Maybe it has a shelf life. Maybe there's a limit to how much erasure a consciousness can sustain. Or maybe, he pauses, considers, maybe someone found this place from outside, and their discovery created a crack. It's a strange thought. That being observed might undermine the system. That documentation might be a form of resistance. That simply knowing something exists can weaken its power. Throughout the day, you notice others. Small signs. A girl in lessons who hesitates before answering. A boy in the factory who drops a component and stares at it instead of immediately picking it up. Tiny rebellions. Micro hesitations. The machine stuttering. That night, you don't sleep. Can't sleep. Lie in bed 23, staring at the ceiling, and suddenly, without warning, a memory surfaces. Not complete. Not clear. Just a fragment. A woman's voice singing. Off key. Tired, but gentle. Your mother. Was your mother. Must have been your mother. You don't remember her face. Don't remember her name. But you remember that she existed. That she sang. That somewhere in a past you can't fully access, you were loved in a way that didn't require gratitude or obedience. The memory hurts. Like frostbite thawing. Painful proof that something was frozen and is now beginning to feel again. Around the dormitory, you hear sounds. Small sounds. Quiet sounds. Breathing that's irregular. A boy sobbing into his pillow, probably doesn't even know why. Another whispering a name, maybe his own. Maybe someone else's, testing whether language can resurrect identity. The facility is breaking. Slowly. Subtly, but breaking. Ward 47 appears next to your bed. Again, becoming a habit. A conspiracy. Tonight, he says, we tried the door. What door? The exit. The one that's always locked. I think if enough of us try together, if we push against the system simultaneously, we might overload it. Break through. It's insane. Probably suicide. Definitely punishment if you fail. But you swing your legs out of bed anyway, because even fragmented memory is better than comfortable erasure. Because your mother sang. Because somewhere in the world you came from, despite its cruelty and poverty and grinding machinery, there were people who knew your name. 7 boys gather, quietly, carefully, moving through the dormitory like shadows learning to be solid. Down the corridor, past the observation points where monitors should be watching but seem distracted, their own programming faltering. The exit door steel, heavy, the kind meant to keep people in, not out. Ward 47 reaches for the handle. You expect it to be locked, electrified, alarmed. It opens, just opens, like it was never locked at all. Like the entire containment system was only ever psychological. Beyond is cold air, real air, sharp with winter and pine and the smell of things growing and dying naturally instead of being preserved in institutional amber. Do we run? Someone asks. Where? Ward 47 responds. Valid question. You're in the margins between realities. No idea which direction leads back to the world. But then you see it, in the distance, moving through the snow that falls in those perfect repeating patterns. The train, coming back. The black locomotive with its silent approach and golden interior light. But something's different. The conductor isn't driving. The engine is dark. The train is empty. It's just there, waiting, no longer animated by purpose. Just a vehicle. A tool. Neutral. The train's dead, Ward 47 says with wonder. Whatever powered it, the suffering, the collection mechanism, it stopped working. You understand suddenly. The train ran on a specific kind of fuel. Children's suffering concentrated enough to power impossible travel. But if the children are waking up, remembering, starting to feel again, that's not pure suffering anymore. That's resistance, consciousness, hope, maybe. And hope, even fragmented hope, disrupts the engine. The 7 of you approach the train, board it cautiously. The interior is dark. No warmth, no light, just empty seats and cold metal. You sit anyway. Wait, for what? You don't know. The train shudders, begins to move, but differently now. Slower, heavier, like it's operating on residual momentum rather than active fuel. It's taking you somewhere, but not back to Evergreen's depths, somewhere else. Through the windows, the landscape shifts. The inverted trees right themselves. The hollow mountains become solid. The snow falls naturally random, chaotic, real. You're moving back toward consensus reality, toward the world that exists whether you remember it or not. The train stops. You don't recognize the location. A street, industrial, working class, could be any American city, could be nowhere specific, could be everywhere simultaneously. The door opens. Cold air rushes in. December air. Christmas approaching. The scent of coal smoke and poverty and life continuing despite everything. Where are we, you ask? Home, Ward 47 says. Or close enough, wherever we came from. Wherever still has space for us. You step off the train. Your feet touch concrete. Solid. Real. The ground doesn't dissolve. You don't fade. You're here. Actually here. In a reality that's harsh and cruel and beautiful and yours. Behind you, the train dissolves. Not dramatically. Just fades. Becomes translucent. Then suggestion. Then memory. Then nothing. The mechanism has failed. The operation has collapsed. The infrastructure that sustained impossible travel between suffering and salvation has broken down. 7 boys stand on a street corner in an unnamed city. You don't remember your names. Don't remember your families. Don't remember the people you used to be. But you remember you were people. Had names. Had families. Had lives that, despite their brutality, were yours. What do we do now? Someone asks. We find out who we are, Ward 47 says. Or who we were. Or who we're going to be. We find something. It's not hope. Not exactly. It's just possibility. The chance to exist without gratitude, without obedience, without having to be useful to justify survival. You walk. 7 boys in institutional gray uniforms, wandering through a city waking up to Christmas. People stare, some concerned, some suspicious. Eventually, someone will call authorities. Eventually, questions will be asked that you can't answer. But for now, for this moment between rescue and recapture, between erasure and identity, you're free, broken, fragmented, traumatized, but free. And somewhere, in archives and basements and digital repositories, your story waits. Adelaide Morrison's manuscript. Robert Whitmore's buried testimony. Dr. Sarah Chun's documentation. Not enough to prove anything. Not enough to prosecute anyone. Not enough to shut down operations that have learned to hide better, adapt faster, evolve with technology. But enough to say, this happened. These children existed. They were stolen, erased, repurposed, and some of them escaped. Some of them survived. Some of them are walking through your city right now, trying to remember their names. The Polar Express is a beloved Christmas story. Its magic and wonder and childhood innocence preserved. It's also a crime scene that's never been properly investigated. A tragedy that's been repackaged as fantasy. A truth that's more comfortable as fiction. Both things are real. Both things are true. America has always been good at holding contradictions. And every Christmas, the train tries to run. Seeks children who are suffering enough to fuel its impossible engine. Offers escape to those desperate enough to board without asking where they're going. Sometimes the train succeeds. Sometimes it fails. Sometimes the children escape. Sometimes they don't. But the mechanism remains. The infrastructure endures. The systems that treat children as resources continue operating, just with different names, different methods, different justifications. You walk through the December morning, a boy without a name, carrying fragments of a past you can't fully access and a future you haven't earned yet. Your mother sang once. You remember that now. Can't remember the song. Can't remember her face, but you remember she existed. It's not much, but it's something. A small piece of identity rescued from the machinery that tried to erase you. A fragment of self that survived processing. You're not whole. Might never be whole. The damage is permanent. The memories are gone. The person you were has been overridden too thoroughly to recover. But you're here, still existing, still breathing, still capable of walking toward an uncertain future instead of a programmed one. And maybe that's enough. Maybe survival, even broken survival, is its own form of resistance. Maybe simply refusing to disappear completely is a victory against systems designed to make you grateful for erasure. The snow falls. Real snow. Random. Chaotic. Beautiful. You don't know where you're going. Don't know who you are. Don't know if there's anyone left who remembers you existed. But you're walking, moving forward, choosing direction even without destination. And somewhere in that choice, small, fragmented, imperfect, is something that looks like freedom, or at least its ghost, which is more than Evergreen wanted you to have. And maybe, just maybe, enough to build a life on. The end in December 1892. Approximately 200 children disappeared across 9 states. No satisfactory explanation was ever provided. The disappearances stopped as abruptly as they began. This story is fiction. The children were real. If you enjoyed this descent into impossible history, subscribe. Because sometimes the most horrifying stories are the ones we've already forgotten. And forgetting, as this documentary has shown, is exactly what they want.